Well, hello, everyone. This is Michelle Moross, and you have found Mental Shift. Now, what is Mental Shift about? Well, it's about, I don't know, meeting people who've making a difference, who make a difference in the world, who had some sort of a life change where they were doing one thing and they shifted their mental shift and went, you know what? I want to do this, and I want this to happen, and make it a mission. Everyone that's ever come on to Mental Shift has had some sort of a mental shift that has changed the world. And I am not joking. Today, you're going to meet someone who is exactly in that line. And so I invited him to come on to Mental Shift because you need to meet him. His name is Matt. I'm going to see it. I'm going to see if I say it right. Zinman.
You're
Zinman?
close. Zinman.
It's
Yeah.
like Invader Zin. So Zinman, I kept calling him X-Men at the beginning. He's the author of Z-isms, Insights to Live By, and difference maker driven. He's a difference maker driven to positively impact 100 million people by 2025. The book is based on his experiences as an entrepreneur, an athlete, single parent, caretaker, and nonprofit founder. Matt is also the CEO of the Internship Institute, which he has established to make experience matter. And when you hear more about what he does, I mean, because really that's the short list. He does so much more. I will be pulling that out of him today so you can see what an amazing human he is, and his give back is so great. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Michelle. It's great to be with you. I really appreciate it.
I'm glad to have you. Oh, I forgot to tell everyone.
Hmm.
While you're listening, Google this, www.z-isms.com. Well, one, it's his book, but two, it's his website, and you can reach out to him this way because you're going to want to.
Right.
You will. You're going to want
Welcome.
to.
Absolutely.
So, Matt, one, you're awesome. Two, I
Thank you.
love your mindset. And anyone
Yeah.
who looks like you up are going to do, dang, what a mindset on this guy. This guy you've got such a positive vibe about you. And that's what your book is about, right? What is your book about?
Thank you. Well, absolutely. I'm all about that positivity, right? We had a nice conversation right before we jumped on here, and my book Z-isms is Insights to Live By. And people first ask me, well, what is a Z-ism? That's the first question I almost always get. And for international audience, they might say Z, but it's still Z here where we are. And it's really about those pearls of wisdom, the credos, the things that people have come about through their life, and use as guiding principles for themselves, that they say to other people as key advice, and why is that? And so for my book, I really covered 4 areas. One being about mindset and self-discovery, and then personal interaction and relationships. And then we go into heightening mindfulness. So that gets into things like the law of attraction, and putting that into the entrepreneurial applications. And then I really wanted to make it actionable. So life enrichment is the final category, and there's a life enrichment action plan, like a personal development framework, so that people come away from the book with whatever resonates with them to put into action.
Okay, everyone who's listening, who knows me. Now do you know why I asked Matt to come on? Your book is like a combination of my 2 books.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's good.
Because it's all about your mindset. It kind of starts with your mindset. If you don't believe in yourself, if you don't have that positive vibe inside of you, channeling whatever else is coming out, nothing else is going to happen. I mean, it'll stifle. You'll stop, and it all starts with attitude, mindset. Yeah, I love it. Now,
Absolutely.
I want to talk more about your book, but first I want to breeze through other things. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the Internship Institute, it kind of pulled at my heart, being a military brat and a military spouse, and you bridge the gap between education, active duty, and employment.
Employment, yeah.
What brought that about? Because that is a huge need, especially for someone who lives in Colorado Springs with 5 bases around me.
Right. Well, certainly the military transition is a part of really how the nonprofit evolved. Going back to the question of the beginning, I started my career in marketing communication and I went to Temple University in journalism. And then after coming through that, I started my own business in 2002 and did it for a few years. But through the whole course of that experience, I had 4 internships. I had always run programs for my employers. I was running it virtually, which was bricks and mortar versus virtual back in '02. Right now, the pendulum swung the whole other way. And I was looking for something different and where I saw a market need and aligned with my experience and my passion. And that led me into the internship space, really focusing on the employer, looking to set programs up that are worthwhile to them so that they will keep doing them and have them be beneficial to everyone who participates. So that traditionally might be college students, but we've had some grants where we had it more specific to military transition. Sometimes they were still in the service, or it was post-service, just to get them some rotational experience to different careers as they transitioned into civilian the workforce. So right, so over time you're kind of defined by your funding sources, and the grants have spanned from the college workforce to and through the military over to disadvantaged youth. But ultimately, it's the employer that has to be the one that provides the opportunity. So we focus on that opportunity pipeline.
Okay. No, I read that on your LinkedIn profile and went, whoa, what is that? And I got distracted. And then once I got distracted with that and wanted to look into that, I went, no, I need to be able to ask him questions. I ran into
Yeah,
the other 2 organizations you have. You have
right,
Student Steps and Vet Steps.
right.
What are those?
Well, those are less organizations as they are a public service of the nonprofit. And they're very similar, their website. So it's studentsteps.org, vetsteps.org. And there's a technique for job seekers that's built into it with the resources that they can download. Everything's free. And it really is based on networking and leveraging LinkedIn to reach out to people in a targeted way, and it really put the control into the hands of the job seeker or internship seeker if we're in the college side of it. But the principles of those techniques are universal. And I think that there's more control that the job seeker has than to feel like you're throwing resumes and cover letters against the wall with the online postings and things like that you never hear back from. So this is something that is more of a kind of a power to the people approach.
I love it. Well, right in the whole time of COVID, and so many people have lost their jobs, or even in my mind, even better, looking at their current job doing, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. And so there's a lot
Right,
of shifting of mindsets going on right now. What's next? And that's why I thought those actually 3 were very important to hear about, because it's services that people need.
right,
Students who are searching, their part-time jobs or their temporary jobs they had at the beginning just to get through school are gone. Or the
right,
ones who are graduating who thought they were going to go one place is gone. And so those are really important, is it branches of the Internship Institute, the public
right,
services that people need, especially right now. But in order to get through all that, we're back to your book. They need the
right,
mindset shift. I mean, they need to understand, the wisdom that you've garnered through the years, and that is always, in my book, so powerful. And you know this, as human beings, that's how knowledge is passed, through storytelling, and it's
yeah,
through sharing what we experienced in the past. I mean, cavemen used to sit around fires and then do, oh, here's the buffalo, and then, they would tell stories about what to do next for
right.
the younger generation, and we lost that. And so when I meet people like you who have written books based off your past experience, my ears perk up and I do, oh, really? What is that? I want to learn more. So, like with your z-isms or
Right.
z-isms, depending if you're in Europe or not,
Sure.
uh, the pearls of wisdom. What it's a really strange question, and not at the same time. What brought you to want to write the book? Where was your mental shift? You know what? I got to put this down on paper. What was that?
Yeah, I think certainly the book is something I've been wanting to do for many years, and there are some concepts in it. I guess we'll get to those for sure. Like earned confidence, like being aware of spiders, and some hard living that I felt was great to pass on. You're right. The book is written as though I'm having a personal conversation with the reader. There are disclosures and putting myself out there throughout to just anecdotes to bring things to life, but ultimately in the same way the book culminates around helping people find their why, in transition, whether that's career, whether that's the point in life that they are. The one question that applies here is, what would I regret not doing?
Oh,
And the book rose right to the surface. I have a 19-year-old son who's just started college, so I'm a little bit in transition. My wife and I still have a 15-year-old daughter, but um, yeah, I had more free time on my hands, and I've been doing the internship work for 15 years, and there's a lot to show for it, but it's very much a grind to getting the employers on board and getting those programs in place. There's a lot of you would thinks, and I can't say there's much easy about it. And I really was looking for the mental shift with the book, and that's what's led me here to you, and the opportunity to be talking about all this and with your listenership.
well, and I love that you agreed to come on, but your mission to impact 100 million people is it's quite the feat. But my thing and my thought was that when I read it was, good for you. Shoot for four.
Right, right. Well, it's like, well, what's achievable? And it's a new thing. This is actually the first interview I've talked about it, because things are evolving for me with the book coming out. And it's once you get over that hump of the writing, I self-published. I started a publishing company to do that. And now I'm on the other side of, okay, what's next? It's not like I don't have a coaching business or anything, right? We talked about what I do day to day. The book is written to be read. It's not a business card. I know that sounds odd, but most books actually are not written to make to make sales, to make your investment back. They're write-offs for people in business, and there's no slight. They just have different purposes.
Mhm.
My purpose here is I've been saying, to positively impact as many people as possible for the last month or two since it's come out. And I decided it's just not specific enough. So I want to set a goal, really more an objective of a number by a when. And I said, well, I started with 10 million. I'm like, well, if I can do 10, I can do 100. And now I have to figure out how to count. So you and I have to talk about your audience. And after today's conversation, we're already at 900, 999, right? On and on. We'll do the math. We'll talk about it. I'm a journalism degree. I can't think math obviously in the moment, but I'm trying.
I have an engineering background, so this math is not math I'm interested in. It needs symbols.
Right. Yeah. No, I'll take all the help I can get. That's fine.
Well, and I giggle when you said that, most people write books as a calling card or as a postcard, a very elaborate business card. And
Right.
I laugh because my first book was written because I thought I was dying. So I wrote it as a legacy for
Mm,
my children.
wow.
And then it just kind of took off. So I'm like, what do I do with this book?
Right. Well, that's well. I mean, the initial purpose, the motive, that's part of your why. And I don't know the history here, but I couldn't be more grateful that you're here with us, and everything since. But now that you've had your shift, things have unfolded for you in different ways too, I'm sure.
Oh, majorly, multiple
Yeah.
times.
Maybe
And
I could turn this interview around on you.
you
I could
can
start.
easily. Okay, when this is
Sure.
over, I'll hit the stop the recording and then we can
Okay.
talk afterwards. But
All right.
that's really it. It's that whole shifting of what are you doing in your life? And so many of us get to a point, especially when our children get a little older, you do, wait a minute, soon they're going to be out of this nest. Now, what am I going to do? What's the purpose here? I thought it was to raise them well. Now what? And so that's kind of what happens. And a lot of my coaching clients do. They come to me doing, I'm reaching this type of age. Now what? Well, it's up to
Right.
you. What do you want? What have you wanted that you've been holding back? Oh, no, I can't do that. I could never do that. Is that what you want? Yes. Then why could you not? Well, because that's out of my, and that whole inner critic thing starts coming out, and I do, now we have something to talk about. And that's why when I was reading what was in your book, and then you offered the a brief to read it, and I'm like, he's my people. I mean, I really wanted to help you spread that reach that 100 million, because you're on the same mission I am, to get people aware of who and what they want and go for it. And
Right.
you're more of a, let's find out, give me an end, and I jumped and just went, if I can reach one person, I'm good. Well, I've gone far more than
Right.
one person at this point. I'm like, now what do I do?
Well, I say that too, right? If you can make a difference in one person's life, you've made a difference. And it does start there, but wanting to make as much of an impact as possible. It's only 5 years, so it's what's going to take me to there. But having a goal like that, and I literally just have thought this through initially in the last few days. Now it really provides its own framework. Everything folds backwards from, well, how would I do that? So you and I were talking that I'm now also thinking I'll be starting a podcast, which I hadn't thought about doing 2 weeks ago. So now I'm on that learning curve, and by end of June, that'll be out. Whatever it is, it'll be out.
It's awesome. I love
So,
that you're just jumping. I love that, because that's the best way to learn. It's the best way to figure things out for you. So often we're afraid to move forward because it's like, wait a minute, who did it? How did they do it? And if you don't know all the steps, it freezes you in this fear cycle. And what I learned about myself was, make my own path. I'll figure it
right.
out. And if I fall, I'll just bounce. I'll come back up. And it's
Yeah.
just kind of this charge. It's almost like, it's the athlete in me. It's the keep going. I don't care if it's starting to hurt. If you fall, there's someone else who's going to do, hey, get you back up again, keep moving with you. And so it's kind of that mindset of, it's not going to hurt that bad, but it might hurt, but it won't hurt that bad. I can keep going.
Right. We've been through all that before. We are of the same mindset. I think
I
it's
know.
really, I think it's about getting into action. Like when I say, well, what would I regret not doing? It was like, I'm doing this book right now. It was a couple of days of, okay, some of these things have been marinating for years and years. Let's get them on paper. And I wrote for a couple of days straight, and it was like, wow, I have something here. I almost thought like I was done, which was like humorous thinking back. A year later, it's like, oh, okay, now it's finally done. But at that point it was, well, I've got it down on paper. I've almost come too far to turn back. I have to keep going. It was that process of just going into action to get yourself moving that then gives you that momentum. I think it applies to a lot of people in many different ways.
Well, man, you don't realize it, but now you're connected to me. The next thing I'm going to challenge you for, I'm a speaker coach.
Ah,
So keep that in mind, because when you have a book and you have a message, the fastest way to reach people is to be able to talk about it in public. So when the doors open up, or actually virtually, you could be on stages around the world.
well, if I'm going to hit that number, I'm going to have to do something like that, or it's going to have to be a very popular podcast, which
Yeah.
I
So
don't know that that's the case.
in other words,
So
I'm looking at you, buddy. I'm looking at you.
yeah, you're absolutely right. And again, there's a little bit of, this is what I want to do and accomplish. And then there's some of, how do you let things unfold? And so being open to what you know and what you want to do and what you don't. So I know I don't want to do coaching, because as much as I might enjoy that, it's limited in terms of individual clients. I want to be more of at a level of greater impact. So things like a podcast, things like becoming a motivational speaker is certainly in my mind. I wouldn't know the first thing, and I've been saying this like in recent days too, about how to go about doing
Hi, my
that.
name is Michelle. I'm a
Right.
speaker
See,
coach.
we just got together for this podcast, and
Yeah. Well,
things
because
are unfolding, in real time.
Well, and they are. And I believe in, when a door opens, you walk through it, find out where explore that space. And if it's
Right.
not right for you, it will open another door for you. And so that's what you did when you reached out and said, hey, Michelle, I want you to read my book. And I'm like, that is one very brave human. He's going to jump and
So,
grow wings on the way. And that is a powerful thing for anyone, especially someone who's in the speaking world and the coaching world. to meet someone who reaches through an internet, connection and says, I know you, I know a couple of people that you know,
Right.
and I'd like to connect with you. And here's my book, and here's a couple of chapters, and can you? That doesn't happen to me.
Huh.
Okay, so when I met you like that, I'm like, whoever this guy is, it's significant, and I needed to meet you, and that's why I said you're my kind of people.
Thank you.
Remember, I wrote back, you're my kind of people. I want you on, and it's because there's a mindset that you have that I encourage in every client I have, and you're in it. And so it's like, oh, avatar, oh, avatar, because with that mindset, you can accomplish anything. And so when you were saying you've got that book, I'm like, I need to help that voice get out, because if he's got the same message I have and I'm desperately reaching as far as I can, if I can link hands with another person who has that mindset, you can keep going too, and then we'll just span. And so that's what my circle of influence is I find people like us, and we're combining our powers to reach around the world to help people move.
Right. Yeah. It's funny. I don't really consider it brave to me. It's the motivational speaking, it's like where, it's all relative to your comfort zone. You're very approachable. So I really didn't, find that hard, but some of the things with social media, standing in front of my iPhone and looking at the, and then doing all that, that's my expanding my comfort zone right now, figuring out the podcast and then whatever our next conversation leads to. Yeah. All right. Fair enough.
Here's the thing about motivational speaking. I do not motivational speak. You know why?
You just speak?
I'm an inspirational speaker. I will
You're an inspirational speaker.
I'll inspire you, but I can't motivate you. I can inspire you for the moment, and get you going. But motivation comes from within. If you don't wake up the next day with me right next to you doing go, 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 you're not going to do it. So I'm not your motivator. You are your motivator. I inspire you to motivate yourself.
Well, that's reinforcing. I am starting to write some of these things down, and the term motivational speakers is like the common thing people say, but inspiration is that word that falls under, that is the goal. I didn't really think about it from the vantage point of, well, you can inspire, but the people that come away from that are the ones that have to be motivated to take action. But you're right, and we've been talking about that as well. And I love what you talk about in terms of, you get knocked down, you get back up, and there's this whole foundation to what's written in Z-isms. Like the chapter 1 is called Earned Confidence, and that's exactly what it speaks to. And it's the fact that we've all been through everything we've been through in our lives, and whatever that ringer is to that individual is whatever you want to describe that as. And you can't deny the logic that you're still here, and you've made it through everything already. So it stands to reason that whatever is happening now, you'll make it through it. It is definitely reasonable to stop yourself from worrying and having anxiety and stressing about things that aren't certain to happen, which a lot of people are in the habit of doing. So earned confidence is that reminder to stay grounded, to be kind to yourself, to focus on gratitude and life enrichment. And it's a theme that continues, throughout everything else I talk about.
I love it. Oh, I wanted to say, everyone, if you are out there, you just tuned in to MentalShift, I want you to know who you're listening to right now. His name is Matt Zinman.
Zinman.
Zinman?
Right. That's okay, because I'll just skip over your last name.
You don't want to say my last name. If you're listening and you're wondering who he is and you want to learn more about him, go to www.z-isms.com. Learn more about him, because there is a lot going on with Matt, and you're going to see far more about him in the future. And then he'll have a podcast, and you'll be able to get him into your group so he can speak about his book. I mean, it's just going to be amazing. He doesn't know what he did, what kind of can of worms he opened when he met me, but
that's how it happens.
It is. But what was I going to say? Well, thank you for all listening in. And Matt, I want to ask one more thing about you, because in
Sure.
your LinkedIn profile, it said you're also a wellness advocate. And
Right.
what's the background on that?
Well, it has a lot to do with my wife, Erica. She's an Army vet. She has, been through different kinds of jobs and finding her way, and she really locked into becoming a health coach, a certified health coach, and nutrition. And she is affiliated with a company called Isogenics,
Oh, okay.
which I'm a big fan of as well. And not as much of today's conversation, but she and I are partnered on it. And I certainly owe a lot of my freedom to have the ability to write the book to being blessed and working with that company. And so, they're in my acknowledgments, and I'm happy to give them a shout out here.
Awesome. No, and I wanted to ask about that, because what people don't realize is that the human body, including our minds, are one big giant package. So you can't
Right.
focus on one part of your life and do, I don't know why everything isn't, falling into place. I never work out. I never eat. I never worry about what I eat, but I'm working on this part of my mindset. Well, no, if you're working on your mindset, it should all follow together. You're a package. And so that's why when I was reading what you do, it's like, you're a full package. You address all of it.
Right.
And I thought that was important to bring up, because you can't say, okay, I'm just going to exercise my right leg and I'm going to let the rest of me fall apart. It just doesn't happen. And that we're a system, we're a closed system. And when I saw everything you did, I'm like, he works with the entire circuit. And the engineer in me is like, oh, that's awesome. I mean, he works the whole circuit. And you work with the mind, body, soul thing.
Absolutely. And by extension, I mean, even though you're referring to that is what it refers to on my LinkedIn. And it's something that also, of course, extends into the book. I have a chapter on mood health. One of my disclosures is that I've had to contend with depression since my teens. That certainly shapes how I take care of myself. We talk about the physical health, and they're not separate. That's the one thing I really picked up on, that I know that you also key in on, is as mental health is looked to as this other thing, this other stigma. But the brains are part of the body, and it's certainly I think pretty close to the center of the whole package of making it all work. And I think that I wanted to take that head on in the book, and I continue to, and when those conversations come up. And then there's I'm certainly not the foremost expert on physical fitness or even nutrition or anything, but it's covered in another chapter on being a life athlete. And I did develop a self-care report card as an accountability tool, which is also free and is on the z-isms website. So it's just something that keeps it easy for someone to spend a few minutes a week just to see how their week went, and set new goals on grading themselves for what they're trying to achieve.
Well, and don't put yourself down about, I'm not an expert on, fitness. The thing is so often people think that they have to be the top of the top in order for anyone to actually find wisdom in them. My
Sure.
thing, I find more wisdom in someone I can relate to. And so when people are like, oh yeah, you need to go on this program, and you should join this program, I do, they're out of this world to me. And so I can't relate, and therefore it's not for me. And then, I'm a big P90X person. So I connected with Tony because he's
Right.
just such a down-to-earth guy. And he was part of the John Maxwell team he was working with the John Maxwell team for a bit. So I was like, I really like that human connection. And I became a proponent for it. So it's human connection. And so in your book that you talk about, what you do, people will connect with that. And do you know what? I could do that. I could follow that. But if you're going to, okay, now lift this 300-pound weight and run 500 miles, you're like, God, no, and you won't
Right.
do it. And that's why I tell people, don't do things so frightening that you stop yourself from doing it. I want you to find one teeny tiny baby step. What change can you make every day that the next morning you do, I did it, or it's
Right.
I see a difference. And so you just keep doing those tiny steps until one day you find out you've run a couple of miles, but one tiny step at a time. And that way your brain isn't terrified. You just are. And then once it
Right.
realizes you're not scared and that you're not dying every time you do a tiny change, it lets you do more. And it's all
Right.
about shifting that mindset.
And keeping it manageable. I think, those incremental steps are exactly the right way. It's like, I can do that. I mean, come on, and then not let yourself off the hook, and then you can feel good about it. But don't make it too much that you won't do it. So whatever that is to you. But moving forward, that's where life enrichment is. That's where the joy is. And hey, look, I mean, I like a binge watch as much as the next person, to be a little bit less in my progress here and there. But you keep stepping forward.
Yeah. And what is one of those quotes I used to love saying? What was it? If you find yourself in hell, don't stop. Right. And so many people
Yeah.
are like, oh, I'm so miserable. I don't like anything about my life, or I don't like this, or I wish I had this. Well, then if you find that to be a hellish place to be,
Right.
move. To sit and complain about it, you're just leaving yourself in that spot. So make one tiny change. My entire life has shifted by something as simple as I stopped putting sugar in my coffee.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
started with that, something so simple.
Yeah, I would like to make a comment on that point, because in trying just to be practical as much as possible, and certainly talk about things like self-love and the sorts of things that go into your overall health. But that's kind of a visceral thing. You can't quite grab it, right? It's there, and you work on it. And so I really stick with kindness as a yes or a no. Are you being kind to yourself or not? Should you have said no to that person, for example? Because then if you didn't say no, then you feel terrible about doing whatever you didn't say no about.
Yes.
It's just any example. So if you go by the kindness barometer as it applies to some of the things that you just described in the negativity, it's a real easy way to catch yourself, to know that, it's about self-respect, and why treat yourself less than with respect and kindness. So that's really your building block, for all of this.
Yeah. I like to say is treat yourself like you would treat a stranger that you wanted to impress or whatever. I think one of the bigger moves that happened to me as a couple of years ago is I didn't realize all the negative self-talk I did.
Hmm.
And one day my girlfriend said, why don't you replace your baby sister's name in that when you say things like that? I go, I'm not saying anything bad.
Hmm.
She says, well, next time you say it with someone you love. So say your sister's name. And I said the same thing I said about myself, but replaced my sister into that spot. And I went, and so I realized every
Hmm.
time I would say something to myself or about myself, I would replace it in my mind with her name instead, and went, man, I am really horrible to myself. And so I started talking to myself like I would talk to my baby sister, with all love. And
Right.
it shifted how I perceived not just myself, but everything around me. And it was like, and that's when I figured out the whole positive draws positive, negative draws negative. It's
Right.
not like science. If I keep talking negative, I will get more negative. And so I
Oh,
started full of
absolutely.
positive thoughts, and more started coming to me. And so that's part of my coaching process is let's find that and let's help you through that. And so even though you're not a coach, you've lived
Well,
life,
yeah.
you're kind of a coach.
Well, I mean, I coach my kids for hockey teams and things like that. I mean, I've played sports my whole life, so it just comes out in different ways. You could say the same thing about, the mental health topic. I mean, as I said, I've had to contend with depression, and I'm not a doctor, but yeah, I didn't have to pass a lot of tests. And that doctor, if they ever suffered through it, how much they really know. So yeah, I totally get your point. And I love the idea of some of those practical tips for the simple things you can do to change the mindset. And there is something that I I like to do is I switch out get with have. So I have to do this as like, right? I get to do
Oh, you
this.
get to do it.
I
It's a
get to do
privilege.
it. So it's kind of like this gratitude converter that you have to keep psyching yourself out. It's like now it's like, oh, I have
Well,
to go to the
the
I
other
have to
thing,
go to the market. That's right. I get to go to the market. I
well,
get
I'm
out
going
of
to
my
add another one
get
to
out of
you.
my house.
I'm adding another
Yeah.
one to you.
Okay.
Try. Remove the word try.
Ah,
You can try different foods, but do not
right.
try anything in your life.
See, now you're going Yoda.
Yes.
right?
And,
Yoda.
but it's
It's like
very,
there's only do, there is no try. It's like, you
well,
have to
let's
say
just
it
say,
backwards.
whenever you're having a party or an event and someone says, I'll try to be there, do you
Right,
write them down as attending?
right. Yeah, they're hedger.
So
So
it's a mindset thing. Your mind equates try with not. And so if there's something you want to attempt or, accomplish in your life, if you put the word try, you will never accomplish it because your brain will never allow you to accomplish it because it hears try and it says not. I will try to get I will try to get to 100 million. Your brain says you won't make it to 100 million. It won't let you. And it will sabotage you on a
right.
sub level.
Yeah, it's not a try thing. It's just figuring it's the how.
Yeah. And so keep
Right.
that word
Yeah.
try. Play Yoda.
I don't think I say try that much. I'm just thinking about it as you bring it up. I'm like, do I
No,
say
you
that?
didn't.
Yeah.
No, I'm doing it
No, I
for the
don't think so.
audience.
Yeah. Oh, I know. But I'm
You didn't.
self-reflecting because I've never really quite heard that in that way. I'm like, I don't think I say I try this or that.
No, I
Um,
haven't heard it out of you, but
yeah.
I wanted the audience to hear that because they'll say things. I mean, when you're listening to a conversation like this, they do, oh, I should try, writing down a log. No, either do it or don't, because your brain
Right.
will let you or will not let you, and it will follow. Your brain is and the universe are like genies. Whatever you say, they say as you wish. And so
Right.
if you say one thing out of your mouth, but think it in your head, it listens to the one in your head. So you have to be very truthful with yourself that
Right.
you are bringing about what you really, really want.
Yeah, I really like that point, and as I mentioned earlier, I do really get into the law of attraction, and where I sum that up is, what you expect tends to happen. That's kind of how I interpret it, whether you believe in it or not, it being there. But it brings you back to earn confidence. It brings you back to not worrying, and that a personal responsibility about how we affect each other with our energy. So in that example, if you are in the habit of worrying, and you get to the point of realizing whatever it was that you worried about actually never happened, you have to do that 2020 and look back and say, well, what did I do to myself? What did I do to anyone else I spoke to? Because of, look, we're all there to lean on each other, but deal with the real, not these
You
phantom.
tortured someone and
Right. Yeah. Not the and yourself, but these phantom things. But to the when it crosses over with the law of attraction in that way, and you say, well, what you worry about is really about having an expectation of something you do not want to happen. So that I tell people not to worry about me because you get me hurt. If you think
yeah.
about it.
Well,
So
I like to say, oh, you made me forget. What
uh,
was it? It was basically, what was it? You were just talking about. Oh, dang it, man.
law of attraction, what you expect tends to happen.
Yeah, it's to that
Okay.
line, but now I forgot. It was really cool too.
All right. We can come back to it.
We're
Don't fight
almost
it.
out
Don't
of
fight
time.
it. Just let it come back.
Well,
It'll,
and
it'll
when we talk about the law of attraction, I know I was going through. My first thing that went through my mind is if you think this is woo woo, think
huh.
of the color of your car, and when you drive down the street, you will see that color of your car everywhere. And so basically, it's what your mind focuses on, what brings about. And that's not what I wanted to say, but it's about the same thing.
Well, I do, I think we talked about a lot of your audience being entrepreneurs,
Yes.
and the idea of the law of attraction, only gets you so far. It can be somewhat transactional. It's not going to start a company for you. It's not going to make that company, profitable and self-sustaining. It's not going to write a book for you. So part of what we also look to talk about is right after that, we talk about inevitability. And when you think of the law of attraction, most people go to gratitude and having that attitude and all the things that go into those expectations. But it has its limits. And when we're talking about something that's more effortful, that I just described, it really is powered by self-belief. So in the example of a business plan, you might think, well, here's where I want to be in 3 months, 6 months, my 1 year out, my 3, 5, 10, and I'm at point A. And that's a natural thing to do. But when you want to apply the law of attraction in this way, you have to go all the way out to point B first, right? My 100 million by 2025 is my point B. I'm still getting clear on it, but I've set that mark. So the same thing goes for anybody entrepreneurially. And you have to look out and be crystal clear about what it is that you not will achieve, but already know that you've achieved, that it's inevitable. So much so in your self-belief of achievement, right? You talked about having doubt and just to go for it. So that really just cued me to kind of bring this up. And in that way, once you have that fixed point, we talk about, we meaning we're having this conversation in the book, lining dominoes backward from that point as in a straight line. And so for the Institute with the nonprofit, for example, and it comes to things that involve more like systemic change, what I have in mind in my point B there, that's honestly, it's decades out for what it's going to take for that change to fully occur. But that is less the immediate priority once I know what that is in terms of self-belief, as is finding that domino that is that tipping point. What is the one now I have to reach that's closer, that once I do that, I know the rest of them will fall to whatever that inevitability is. So it's, I don't know, it's a little heady, but try and have some fun with it. And I've found that it works for me in some ways, not always. It's hard to sustain, just like the law of attraction, and trying to do practical things like setting alerts on your phone to just take a mindful moment, right? Those kinds of things throughout the day. I could take a minute 4 times a day to just stop what I'm doing, but I have to make my phone be my taskmaster. I'll just blink and, and it's done with. So these are the kinds of things you have to do in order to stay aligned with both the law of attraction and the things that are more effortful to make them inevitable.
I love that. I love that you added that. Yeah, you can't wish everything into place. You must have action.
Right. Well, I think the whole thing with the woo-woo, and actually, honestly, I mean, maybe I'm like in a bubble, but until I came out with the book, I really hadn't heard that. Right. I mean, I'm sure that I don't know how many people heard that, but I did not hear that until recently. But in a way, I get it. But in another way, it's just not kind of how things apply in the way I see them. It's just really more about what's the practical approach.
Just an is.
Yeah,
You have to remember,
I don't really relate to woo-woo, even though we talk
I've got
law
a
of
tech
attraction.
background, and so when people say, "Well, that's really woo-woo," I do. Well, it sounds woo-woo, but it actually works. So, I mean, I don't do vision boards or things like that.
Right.
I do write down my plan for 20 years from now.
Sure.
And so I know what I want. I can feel, taste it. I can see it. I know what my emotional state is at that point. I know it. And basically, I walk towards it, and I make sure I do the tasks that are needed to be done as I'm going. And then the other things that fall into place, great. But I've had things where I've put it out 20 years and it happened within 3.
Well, we definitely have more conversations ahead. I'm certain of that.
We do.
Just from this one.
Well, I want to ask you,
Sure.
What is one bit of information, wisdom that you would like to share with the audience? We are out of time.
Wow. So there's so much that could go in this question in terms of its direction. I'm going to stay at the front end of that whole mindfulness section, because we talk about swimming with the current, and then we have some fun with making coincidences matter. We go into chapter 11 is 11:11. I don't know if you go
That's
mindful
cool.
when you catch that synchronous
I didn't
moment.
catch it, but okay.
And then it gets into amplifying gratitude and inevitability. So backwards now, at the front end of that is swimming with the current. And this really has a lot to do with trusting your gut. Again, earned confidence is part of that. It's rooted, in the book. But over time, I've certainly learned, and other influences from people who've given me great advice, is that trusting your gut, you're going to make a lot better decisions than if you overthink things. And that's pretty much been proven, mainly by Malcolm Gladwell in the book in Blink. But I don't want to digress too much here. The answer to the question is, you have to trust your gut when you get that feeling like you're banging your head against the wall. Again, I'm mindful of the audience being entrepreneurs here, because that happens a lot, and you're trying to figure things out and go in one direction or another just to get closer to point B, however far and clearly as you see that. But you have to trust that we can be willful people, and if you're applying your entrepreneurial will and you're still kind of pushing that boulder up the hill. You're trying not to let it roll back down, or whatever metaphor. You're swimming against the current in this case. You have to stop and ask yourself, what does it mean to turn around? That could be a circumstance. It could be a job. It could be a relationship. It could be a conversation. Just across the board, that experience of that you're triggered by, you know what, I'm really banging my head against the wall here. I don't know why, but that's when you really stop and step back and trust yourself to go with the flow, right? That's what we're talking about, is finding the flow again. So for whatever reason, for your question, that's the thing, that's what comes to mind for me right now.
Go with the flow.
Go with the flow. Find the flow. If you're not,
Find
if
the flow and go with
you're
it.
going against it, turn around. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt.
So,
And
thanks,
for
Michelle.
those of you who are listening and you're like, who in the world was Michelle just talking to? His name is Matt, and I'm going to say, I promise, Zinman. No?
I'll go with it.
Zenman. Zen. That's the word, Zen.
Zinman. You can go Zinman or Zinman.
Zinman.
Both are.
Well, I have Invader Zim in my head. It's a cartoon that my kids used to watch. And so I was like, no, that can't be right.
I'm hard to offend. So as I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you and you know, speak to what we have, and hopefully your listeners are coming away with some benefit. And all I can ask is, you know, on that website on Amazon, there's the front part of the book is for free to read. So go ahead and do that. You'll know if you want to keep reading. And the reviews have been very kind. And I'm feeling like I'm going with the flow here. Maybe that's why I brought that up. Definitely swimming with the current with the book and having conversations like this. So thank you.
Outstanding. Thank you. And you beat me to it. I was going to tell everybody about your book and where to get it. But if you're watching this on my YouTube channel, all the information is right below us. If you are listening on one of the Spotify, iTunes platforms, you're going to have to look at the beginning, because that's where all the writing is. Or just go to the YouTube page and you can see it scrolling under his name.
Right.
So thank you all for joining us, and go to z-isms.com.
Yeah.
And then find out, get the book, the Z-isms, Insights to Live By, off of Amazon, and connect with Matt, because as you see, he's a really awesome guy, or as you hear, he's a really awesome guy, and he's just got good life lessons and some amazing brain power behind him, especially with all his nonprofit and the outreaches he has with the Internship
Institute. It's just the years adding up, Michelle.
I know.
Just the years add up. Thank you.
Studentsteps.org and vetsteps.org, because just really cool. Reach out and learn more and get that book and help him reach that 100 million in the next couple of months, because I think he needs a bigger number. Have a great week, everyone. And thank you, Matt, for joining me.
Thank you.
Until next time, everyone. Have a great day.